Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. So it seems that we have more bankruptcy problems in real estate, and you got to see the headlines for yourself. So let's jump right in. Chinese wealth manager Zhong Zhi files for bankruptcy litigation. This is January 6th, 2024. And as I've told you guys before with these kind of stories, no news does not mean good news. No news means there hasn't been another bankruptcy. So whenever we get news on this kind of stuff, it's always another bankruptcy. And you can see here, this one is Zhong Zhi. Also, here's another headline. Zhong Zhi Enterprise Group, Chinese shadow bank files for bankruptcy. So I don't know what we should be more worried about, that there's more bankruptcies in the real estate sector, or there's a really, really large shadow bank in China. You can determine which one you think it is. We're going to go into more details of stuff, but it's not just China, it's also the USA. Here's another headline. Medical Properties Trust stock drops sharply to approach 14-year low as tenant falls 50 million behind on rent. So this is our hospital system in the USA. However, according to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, she says everything is fine and we're going to get that soft landing. And this is actually a quote from her. Wage increases are running over price increases now. This is related to the latest jobs report. And this is a quote also. American workers are getting ahead and the progress for the middle income families is very noticeable. So I'd love to hear your thoughts if you agree or disagree with Janet Yellen that American workers are getting ahead. The kind of headlines that I look at, as we just talked about, bankruptcies in real estate. We also can see here auto loan delinquency rates at the highest level since 1994. Moreover, just 2 days ago, January 2nd, or a couple days ago already, only half Americans believe they can pay off their December credit card bill. And this is a crazy, crazy headline. Florida, first state to allow to import drugs from Canada in bid to reduce costs. Now, what all these things are telling me is that there's people out there who are struggling to pay the bills, right? I've mentioned medical costs several times in this channel. This is something that is very, very concerning to me. And I'm just telling you the truth. Our healthcare system in the U.S. is broken, and I don't probably have to tell you that. You already know these things. The sad thing about it, though, is that it's just, I don't know, for whatever reason, there's a whole bunch of Americans that just don't care about this stuff. And they care more about whether or not gay people are getting married. And I mentioned it that way because it's true. Like when you read comments on the internet, like people just go on and on and on about woke stuff, woke this, woke that. And it's like, for me, as just a dollars and cents kind of person, I know that healthcare costs are ludicrously expensive. I also know that housing costs are very, very expensive. So, this idea that, these things are unimportant, I think is crazy. And the way that I guess Florida's decided to try to address this issue is to get drugs from Canada, which just shows that our system is completely broken. It's ludicrous, right? So, I'll just say this again very clearly. I don't think any politician cares about you unless they truly want to fix the system and try to make this more affordable for people. And I'm just talking about your health for you and your family. I'm not talking crazy stuff. Moreover, just to show you guys like how people in certain areas can be out of touch. This was a banker in the UK, and Brits, you can comment on this one. So this is NatWest Chair, so he's some sort of banker dude. And I guess he's under fire because he told people that it's not that difficult to get a house. And if you're just an average person in the UK/London, you probably disagree, and therefore he's getting backlash. Now, this is just sort of like why I say, hey, no matter what these politicians or government people say, or say rich bankers say, it all depends on how you're feeling and your neck of the woods in your particular situation. So, Yellen says American workers are getting ahead and the progress for middle-income families is very noticeable. You make your own determination on that. So not everyone is struggling, right? Bankers are doing fine, but I think the average person is struggling. Regardless of what they say, I also do see that we have these problems in our healthcare system. So this is Medical Properties Trust. This is a REIT. They're essentially the landowners, you could call them, of many hospitals. I think they have like a portfolio of 400 hospitals. It's like really a lot. This is the last year. The stock is down 70%. This is a 5-year chart, or actually, sorry, max chart. And it was actually really interesting because I was looking at it here. You're at kind of the same level as the 08-09 crash. So theoretically, maybe this is the bottom for them. I say theoretically. It's always very risky with these things because, yes, this was one of the ones that came back, but some of these don't come back. And this is just, reality of how risky this stuff is. You can read it here. Nation's biggest hospital landlord suffers new losses. I laugh and it's like, how does that even make sense? So hospitals aren't paying the rent? Like what? And I want to read through some of the details of this stuff because there's a couple of things in here that I noticed that were very, very odd. And we'll go through it here and you'll see what I'm saying. Okay, so first, to understand how these are connected to the China situation, it'll make sense. We're talking about ultra low interest rates, right? So what does that allow people to do? Allows people to borrow a whole bunch of money and then acquire a bunch of assets, right? So it says the Birmingham, Alabama-based real estate investment trust made $23 billion of acquisitions over 2 decades, right? So this tells the story. A couple decades of easy money. 23 billion, it starts to add up. And then it says here, now with interest rates higher and money tighter, MPT, so that's your real estate company thing here, the MTP has been extending financial support to some of its most troubled tenants. So the tenants aren't paying the rent. And that's Steward and Los Angeles-based Prospect Medical Holdings. Steward accounted for $3.8 billion, and that's 20% of MPT. Now, the thing that I thought was fascinating about this is that there's 400 hospitals involved, and I dug into it a little bit more, and it's multiple states. So don't just think it's just one state. It's like Pennsylvania, Utah's in there, and it's a couple others as well. So it's not like just one area. And I mean, 400 hospitals is quite a lot. And moreover, I was digging a little bit more to this thing, and it says here, this is the thing I thought was fascinating. So talking about their tenants, it says, Prospect and Steward, that's their tenants, are closely held and don't disclose consolidated financial statements publicly, right? So we don't even know necessarily what is going on financially with their tenants. They don't, it's not public. During a conference call with analysts in August, MPT's chief financial officer, Stephen Hammer, said MPT planned to file Steward's 2022 financial statements once the company received them. And then moreover, here's the key. He said MPT would be doing so, right? So they're going to show their financial statements at the request of the Security and Exchange Commission. And he pointed to the SEC rules requiring such disclosures if a single tenant represents a significant portion of a company's assets. So be careful with these kind of things because we don't know what's going on under the hood. And I feel like this is, directly related to China's shadow bank situation. Again, when you had all this money flowing, you had a lot of these types of, companies or holding companies, or whatever you want to call them, acquiring assets, but they're doing it all on borrowed funds. And when, one of your tenants stops paying or you don't finish construction or whatever, right? When something breaks, when the essentially the punch bowl is cut off and the money stops flowing, you're underwater. And I want to talk about the China one because they actually give numbers on this, which are pretty crazy. So they did an audit on this thing, right? And I'll read it here. It says, Zhongzhi said it obviously lacked the ability to repay its debts, right? So we're underwater. And this is according to a statement Friday from Beijing's First Intermediate People's Court, which accepted the case. Here it is. An audit found Zhongzhi's debts were as much as 460 billion yuan, and that's compared to 200 billion yuan in assets, right? So you are way underwater, and even if you sold all your assets at 200 billion, you can't even pay back your debt. So how does this make sense? This is the point I'm trying to tell you. It doesn't, right? It doesn't. How can we allow these things to happen? But this is part of our system when you're giving out lots of free money to everyone. And this particular situation, the shadow bank one's an interesting one because I guess it's essentially kind of flying under the radar. Because what they do, they go after people who have essentially bad credit. When you read through this stuff, it's like, oh my God, what is going on here? For real. Here we go. So I'll read this more here. It says, shadow banks like Zhongzhi are loosely regulated, right? So it's kind of like, I was thinking about this. It's kind of like the, do you know those like cash checking stores in poor neighborhoods in USA? It's kind of like that. Shadow banks like Zhongzhi are loosely regulated firms that pool household savings to offer loans and invest in real estate, stocks, bonds, and commodities. China's trust industry is a key alternative funding source for weaker borrowers unable to get regular bank loans, right? So that tells you the full story right there. This could be cascading. And I wonder like how long this is going to take to recover from these kind of losses. this is something that it's like money just essentially vanishes. Moreover, yes, they do have real assets in this case of China situation, right? Someone may come finish these unfinished buildings, or someone may come buy these things, and there'll be pennies on the yuan or dollar, however you want to say it. But there's heavy losses here, right? And the question is going to be like, would the Chinese government come in and bail them out? Similar situation with something like this, like is the government going to come in and like bail out hospitals? I mean, we can't just let our hospitals fail. So that's a different situation than say in China, where if it's an apartment complex and the money just isn't there, you could theoretically just let it fail. The issue becomes though is that who is holding these debts, and where is people trying to claw back the money. So it obviously always depends on who's losing and how powerful you are at getting the government to essentially bail you out. So we'll see. Moreover, talking about, and I want to go back to the Janet Yellen situation, because she's saying everything is fine and we're gonna get that soft landing, etc. I always say the same thing, and I just want to repeat it over again because I think it's important. Regardless of what the national numbers say or anything like that, everything depends on your neck of the woods. So look out for yourself, and you got to take care of yourself. You can't trust people to take care of you. Yes, theoretically, the Chinese government could come in and bail out those, property developers or whatever, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that. So unemployment rate, this is the job data just came out recently. It's 3.7, so it's holding. You can see here, so these are the non-farm payrolls. So we added, 216,000 jobs. What Janet Yellen is referring to, which is correct, so she's not making stuff up, so it's just the way you say things. So hourly earnings, weekly earnings are above your CPI data, right? So essentially, the wage gains are going above inflation. The thing is, though, is that there's a couple things there. So one is this data includes the recent contracts with the auto workers, so the UAW. So they got a whole bunch of wage gains, right, based on that. However, and this is sort of where it depends on your particular situation, even if you got, say, a raise this year or recently, that's a better way to put it, does that make up for all the years where you had no wage gains? Meaning that over a 10-year period, are your wages keeping up with inflation? And again, that's going to be based on your particular situation. I think a lot of people are struggling though, and this is based on sort of like the things that I see of auto delinquencies, or people can't pay credit cards, etc. And there's a lot of data, and I'll go over another video this weekend talking about how people are struggling. This is also kind of interesting though. This shows the loss of jobs during the pandemic, and then the gain of jobs. So it looks like we've gained a lot of them back, but it's not necessarily tell the full story, because it's not the same jobs. I've told you guys this time many times on the channel. There'll always be a job for you, but it may not be necessarily the one that you want, meaning that banking and tech jobs have really, really been in decline. There's been a lot of layoffs in those areas. However, if you want to get a job in like retail or something like that, it's there. If you want to work at McDonald's, it's there. There's a job there. This is a good chart of that kind of thing. So this is just a 1 month thing, so not necessarily the full year. So we're adding jobs in healthcare, which I've always told you guys, there's always jobs in healthcare. It's just reality. I mean, it's not like we're going to run out of sick people. It's just, there's always going to be a need for that. Government, we're adding jobs in leisure, hospitality, retail, construction. You guys can see it for yourself, but the big ones are like leisure, hospitality, and retail. The one thing that really stood out to me was in December that we were losing transportation and warehousing jobs. So I do know there are people in the community who work in these fields, especially too. I remember, I want to say it was the UK, and I think it might happen in different cities in the USA. And you guys can fill in the details and that stuff, because I can't keep track of every single city out there. But it's kind of like your longshoremen and people who deal with shippers, right? Those kind of things. Especially the warehousing one is an interesting one as well, because during the pandemic, Amazon was this doing great business, all the sort of deliveries, et cetera. And so it was thought at a time that would just be the future, right? And so some of these sort of companies like way overhired in these kind of things, and then when suddenly people are slowing down. And I'll give you an example. Here in Korea, they did a report, I want to say it was like a couple weeks ago. My wife and I were like, oh wow, I didn't realize that. It was a company called Coupang. They are publicly traded, but they were talking about how like the amount of essentially money coming through their system, like how many people are ordering stuff online, has been decreasing. So we've actually seen a decline here. I haven't seen recent numbers on Amazon if they're increasing or decreasing. I don't think people are going to stop buying on Amazon. That's not going to happen. But this sort of thing just represents like how much trade goods are coming in and out. And you'll see shifting results or shifting numbers on are the goods coming from Korea or are they coming from China? And it depends what type of goods as well. So this represents to me business activity. So I think that's the one that really stood out to me. The other thing too, which I want to mention as well, is we've talked about this several times on the channel too. Young people are really struggling to find jobs. There's been articles about that, and they're living longer at home. I'll do a separate video on how the state of young people are doing, but it is concerning to me. And also too, young people are having a difficult time getting into their first home. Prices are still elevated. So I try to give you guys a holistic picture of everything. And hopefully this is helpful and useful for you. And hopefully you're doing okay out there. So anyway, I always appreciate your thoughts. And thank you for tuning in. And I'll catch you in the next video.